Minister flags more autonomy to provinces in next 5 years. No GST increase, but no relief for workers either. And site works announced on major NCD projects.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Tuesday's news. Our top story is a little later on, but first, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has announced Papua New Guinea's support to extend trade and economic opportunities with the Republic of Fiji. Speaking last night in Suva, Mr. O'Neill spoke of establishing free trade and creating an economic bridge for Fiji to the international community. Mr. O'Neill says the two countries share many similarities and the friendship of over 40 years must expand to benefit both people.
Prime Minister's two-day official visit ended yesterday. Speaking during the farewell dinner hosted by the Fijian government, Mr. O'Neill said PNG and Fiji will open up more dialogue in areas of free trade and people-to-people capacity building. Among this planned support is to establish a standalone embassy for Fiji in Port Moresby, while Mr. O'Neill says PNG will back Fiji to raise regional concerns to the international community.
We will continue to work together in this forum so that the concerns of the Pacific are made well known to the international community, and in that regard, Papua New Guinea also supports Fiji's bid for the elections to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. We will certainly follow this up with our mission in New York in making sure that Fiji has the necessary support to attain that membership.
The official visit ended yesterday with closed-door meetings between government officials. The Prime Minister says PNG and Fiji governments must create opportunities in business and improve government policies to suit the needs of the small people in communities.
The friendship between our two countries displayed over the past 2 days is again a testament to the relationship that Papua New Guinea enjoys with Fiji. It started some 43 years ago, and a very clear indication of the relationship that we have just we established right after our independence in September.
Earlier yesterday, the PM addressed the University of South Pacific at the Laukala campus in Suva. There he spoke highly of tapping into the use of modern technology for inclusive growth in the Pacific.
There must be a level of certainty in how governments operate within the region. And there must be stability in the policy that we are developing. That will help many of the economies to increase their productivity and strengthen inclusive growth that we are all aspiring to attain.
Jack Lopava Jr., National EMTV News.
To our top story now, Minister for Intergovernment Relations Kevin Isufu says in the next 5 years, his main objective is to implement the second Alota Accord by giving greater autonomy to provinces. Giving autonomy to provinces is one of the 5 objectives the minister is looking into to implement in the coming years. The ministers made these remarks following the opening of the 3-day governors' conference today in Medang.
22 governors in Papua New Guinea have gathered in Medang for the 3-day governors' conference, which was officially opened today. The theme of the conference is Empowering Provinces for Inclusive Growth, translating Alota Accord 2 to Provincial Partnership.
Inclusive growth is all about people participation. And for that to happen, we must start with the provinces. Our people, youth, school leavers want employment and want meaningful participation.
Intergovernment Relations Minister Kevin Isufu says a new organic law will give power to provinces and to ensure they operate as one entity. He says another step is to give greater autonomy to provinces, saying the framework is now complete and 3 provinces in New Ireland, East New Britain and Enga have been selected to start the process.
Well-prepared provinces should not be held back and should not be allowed to develop further. Should not be held back, but should be allowed to develop further with more powers.
Minister Isifu spoke further on district service and growth services, saying they must work with district development authorities to develop district services and growth centers. Another area his ministry is looking into is the partnership frameworks and service delivery agreements, adding the challenges are great and the best way to find solutions is through working together.
We must work together.
Meanwhile, the minister is expecting constructive discussion, debates and resolutions from all provinces this week, while they focus on achieving outlined national outcomes such as the drafting of the new organic law, intergovernment financing arrangement review, and the decentralization strategy 2018 to 2022. Meanwhile, Deputy Prime Minister Charles Abel shared similar thoughts on the minister's plans on giving greater autonomy to provinces. But he says it must not be to create competition amongst the provinces, but to work as one in delivering basic services to the people.
National and provincial governments is, of course, ultimately about what we can both do to progress the interests of our nation and our people in the spirit of a true partnership. It is not just about what the national government can or should do. It is a mutual effort.
Martha Luis, National EMTV News, Madang.
Deputy Prime Minister Charles Abel says there will be no immediate increase in the goods and services tax or any relief for the 400,000 workers who pay income tax. Speaking in Madang today, Mr. Abel chose a politically favourable line, stating that the government does not want to burden people with a GST increase.
In Madang today, the Deputy Prime Minister was very diplomatic. Choosing his words carefully, he said there will not be any increase in the goods and services tax because, quote, the government doesn't want to burden the people.
We didn't want to be seen to be imposing any more burden onto our people. So we basically left GST and the income tax system the same.
But he did admit that the arguments for a gradual increase in the GST and the reduction in income tax were good, but the government just couldn't do it. We put a set of questions to him today. They were in relation to the 2015 recommendations by the Tax Review Committee to ease the tax burden on Papua New Guinea's small workforce of 400,000 and increase consumption tax in the form of GST. The recommendations were presented by the Tax Review Committee headed by Sir Nagora Bogan in 2015.
The tax system is struggling to keep pace with the way the country is going at the moment.
And the rationale is that instead of depending on just 400,000 people to shoulder the income tax burden, the net should be widened because nearly everyone pays GST in one form or another.
We wanted very much to increase the tax-free threshold up to 20,000, but it just would have impacted too much on the revenue, which of course will affect government services.
From an economic and financial standpoint, the recommendations make sense. Politically, it's a double-edged sword. An increase in GST will benefit the economy, but it will also affect rural voters. And of course, rural voters speak the loudest during elections. The Deputy Prime Minister added that the focus is now on growing the economy and getting people who aren't in the formal tax system to pay taxes. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Ley.
Following continuous election-related violence in Hela and Southern Highlands, the Public Employees Association is now calling on the government to withdraw public servants from these two provinces. In a media statement, PEA President Robert Kutapai has taken issue with the government's decision to send in security forces into these two provinces without insurance, whilst public servants in these provinces are also caught up in the violence. He says recent pictures from the provinces demonstrating the arms build-up is alarming, and as such, security personnel and public servants are at great risk if they remain. The PEA president has therefore called on the government to activate a stand-down order for all public servants to protect their lives in these difficult times in these two provinces. Morobe Governor Ginson Sauno said the Provincial Executive Council has not sworn in the Lands and Physical Planning Board because they do not have funds available for the operation of the board. The province has been without a Lands and Physical Planning Board since 2016. There have been frequent reports from the public of unregulated commercial development in zones designated for residential areas. Meanwhile, the governor said these issues will be rectified once the members are sworn in.
It's all finalized, all the formalities are done. Last thing to do is to swear them in. And we have no money to do that, so we are looking around. When we have the funds available for that, we will call for swearing in. And when we swear them in, they will start work on all the outstanding matters.
You're watching National EMTV News. We'll have more of the day's stories after these messages. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Tuesday's news. A police officer in Leh was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment today for police brutality, which he will serve concurrently. The officer, Jesse Kaya, who was a police prosecutor, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of grievous bodily harm under Section 319 of the Criminal Code. Kaya hit one person with an iron bar, fracturing the victim's left arm, and hit another with a spade handle, breaking the victim's nose whilst under the influence of alcohol. The offence took place in a police vehicle at the Chinatown Police Station on the 25th of May 2017. Acting Justice John Namapo said police officers are entrusted with the responsibilities to uphold the law and they must be punished appropriately for breaking the law. The court ordered that Kaya pay a total compensation of 5,000 kina to the victims within 30 days of the order. The full payment will result in Kaya serving a reduced sentence of 1 year, 6 months. St. John Ambulance will be releasing Papua New Guinea's first reality television show called Green Angels in November this year. They also launched their new mobile phone app today, made possible through a partnership with the Sir Brian Bell Foundation. These announcements were made today at the St. John Ambulance Heroes and Award Ceremony.
St. John Ambulance officially launched their reality TV show and new phone app today. The TV show, called Green Angels, is made up of 12 episodes and will be premiering on MTV in November. They also launched their new app, which can be downloaded from Google Play. Once the app is downloaded, you don't need data to run it.
This app tells you, in the next slide, will tell you a series of numbers, and those numbers are your exact position on planet Earth to within 10 meters accuracy. That's right, 10 meters accuracy. Now this was invented initially called GPS by the United States.
In addition, St. John is building a new operation headquarters, which is set to open in October. Lilian Soperakinea, National EMTV News.
Also today, the St. John Ambulance graduated 37 emergency medical technicians and reservist ambulance officers. They also acknowledged and awarded 5 first aid heroes. Governor General Grand Chief Sabob Dadai in his address said this recognition ceremony is a first in many years and is pleased to see many more to come.
St. John Ambulance graduated over 30 emergency medical technicians and reservist officers today. In acknowledgement of outstanding performances undertaken in life-saving actions after going through St. John First Aid training, 5 Papua New Guineans received First Aid Hero Awards.
Involved in a motor vehicle accident.
We are here to acknowledge their skills and training, their commitment and care, their dedication to their families, friends, and our wider community.
Governor General Grand Chief Sir Bob Dadai, in his address, applauded the staff and officers of St. John Ambulance for the tremendous work they put in to help save lives every day.
These individuals play a critical role in saving lives and save lives they do. They deserve our praise and recognition and it is therefore fitting that as we declare the Senzon Day, we acknowledge the valiant efforts of these men and women.
In addition, 5 officers were also acknowledged for their work during the national election last year. Health Minister Sir Pukatemu said he will make it his business to make its service a national service within PNG.
To bring to Parliament a bill to make St. John Ambulance a national organization. The Central Council is now working on the bill, and hopefully when they are ready, I will have the pleasure to present that bill to Cabinet, and it will be my pleasure to read it in Parliament to ask my colleagues to support that important intervention.
St. John Ambulance also issued warrants of appointments to 11 of its officers. Lilian Soperakinea, National EMTV News.
Central Province Police have apprehended Tommy Maiva Baker, who the police have nicknamed as the most notorious criminal in the southern region. Baker is wanted for a string of criminal activities in Milne Bay, Northern and Central provinces. These include the ATM robbery in Alota, numerous sea piracy cases resulting in murder, and the Jackson's Airport robbery in 2017. Police say Baker is the leader of a criminal syndicate that operates between the Central and Milne Bay provinces. He was in custody at Gilligilli Jail in Alota when he escaped on June the 18th and made his way into Port Moresby. His apprehension last Thursday has led to the apprehension of 7 other criminals who have escaped from Gilligilli and Biru jails between June and July. A 28-year-old refugee living in Manus has appeared before the Lorengau District Court on sexual penetration charges against a minor. Police are alleging that the accused, Mohammed Nasir Hosseini from Afghanistan, sexually abused a 14-year-old girl between the 19th and 27th of May this year. The court heard that the victim was forced to have sex with Hosseini on numerous occasions, and if she refused, Hosseini would, out of frustration, try to endanger his own life. The incident occurred at a lodge in Lorengau and also in Salome Block. Manus Provincial Police Commander Chief Inspector David Yapu says the cases of sexual offences against minors is on the rise, and parents and guardians must closely monitor their daughters' whereabouts to ensure their safety. Equal Playing Field is an organization that delivers awareness on preventing violence in communities. Founder and director Adam Averill says the program, now into its 6th year, has touched and changed the lives of many Papua New Guineans. Australia's Deputy High Commissioner to PNG, Caitlin Wilson, says people should be focusing on eradicating violence by providing more awareness and education.
Everyone here, the Stanley have been awesome.
Founder Adam Averill says the concept of equal playing field came about in 2011 before it was registered under IPA in 2012. The program started in Morata in Port Moresby, where 200 volunteers helped and carry out its awareness education program. The program, which focused on eliminating violence, started in communities and schools through school-based awareness.
So we're a women and child rights organisation, and we mainly focus on respectful relationship education. So primarily we work in schools, grade 7 or 12 to 15-year-olds, and we work with them over a course of a term on issues like understanding violence and abuse, empathy, consent, where to go to for help, all things based around respectful relationships and child protection. We also work with their teachers, so we do some of the only child protection training in the country, and we work to support those teachers in delivering some of our education.
Equal Playing Field is based on respectful relationship, empowerment and better education for all. Australia's Deputy High Commissioner to PNG, Caitlin Wilson, says people should learn to focus on eradicating violence in their communities.
When you look at the global statistics, more than 1 in every 3 women has been beaten, coerced into sex or abused in some other way, most often by someone she knows, including her husband or another male family member. So again, as I referred to, eliminating violence against women everywhere is a priority. It's a broad part of our domestic policy, and it's a very important part of our foreign policy.
Founder Adam Avril says the program also focuses on changing young minds to be advocates and educators in schools. He says the future of equal playing field is looking at ways to create institutional change.
But the future is looking at how we create institutional change, so how we work on curriculum at the teacher training level and how we expand and scale to make sure that all children in Papua New Guinea schools and in Papua New Guinea are protected and that they grow up with an ethic of having respectful relationships. So our tagline is safe homes, happy families, strong community.
Godwin Eki, National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. We go for another break. When we come back, we take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas now, a fierce wildfire that's already killed one person and injured 2 fire officers has now spread across the border from California into Oregon. Strong winds are making it almost impossible for firefighters.
Fast-moving Klamath on fire near the Oregon border has now destroyed 72 structures and is threatening hundreds more as it spreads over 30,000 acres. The flames killed 1 person and injured 2 firefighters, including Brandon Feller, who suffered severe burns when his engine caught fire. This blaze near San Diego burned Captain Mike Vasio's ears.
As soon as that wall of heat hit me, I knew I was burned, but it wasn't that bad to where I was going to go down.
He returned to the firefight in Alpine, where the flames destroyed homes and triggered evacuations. More than a dozen wildfires are burning in California, and there are spot fires like this too, sparked under oppressive heat and dry conditions.
I was in the house, and all of a sudden I saw flames rise above the golf course, and we were scared to death. The flames came right up to my back lawn.
Near Santa Barbara, where flames destroyed at least 10 homes, residents of Goleta returned to almost ghostly scenes. Others recounted the rush to save their animals.
We were driving through a wall of flames, and every time I see a fire, I get the horses and the trailer out early.
As if the flames weren't enough, heavy rains triggered mudslides like this one in San Bernardino County, where the scorched earth couldn't hold back the water.
To Thailand now, and so far so good. 8 out and 5 more to go, and the final mission to rescue the 4 remaining boys and their coach from deep inside the Thai cave is underway. Officials confirming the highly dangerous operation began at 3 p.m. this afternoon. 19 divers are involved and water levels are stable despite rain in the area.
Every passing ambulance, a success story. 4 more boys driven away and airlifted to hospital, their identities still a closely guarded secret.
All 4 were transported to Chiang Rai Hospital via air transport. They are now all safe.
Kept in isolation, the boys were cold but in better condition than the first 4 out.
The first batch of 4 boys. When we first got to them, they had very low body temperature. 2 of them came out with abnormal X-ray results. We suspected they may have lung inflammation. All 8 kids are healthy, and they are free of fever and fit mentally.
He says they fared so well because they're fit footballers. After more than 2 weeks underground, the boys are wearing sunglasses until their eyes adjust. They'll be monitored in hospital for at least a week. 4 other boys, including the youngest, an 11-year-old, and their football coach remain in the cave. They could be rescued tonight in what may be the last phase. All the divers are cautious of complacency in their treacherous task.
Well, one of the very difficult things in the cave is communication. It's incredibly hard to understand, and misunderstandings and high complexity that leads to very bad situations.
The journey out takes several hours, 2 divers taking each boy, 18 others helping along the route. The trickiest part, a narrow choke point. It's barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The lead diver has to take off their air tanks and roll them through first before crawling on behind. Each boy has to find his own way through before descending back down into the murky water. Beyond there, some respite. A large cavern turned into a staging area, allowing the boys time to recover before the final part of their journey. Locals saying this is the type of mountain that swallows people and doesn't let them out. It's the type that parents warn their children about, and it's bringing great hope here that this time, so far at least, that hasn't been the case. So now it's all eyes to the skies. Heavy rain has been falling at the site for hours, everyone hoping it won't disrupt what could be the final push.
Britain's Prime Minister is clinging on after another top-level resignation over plans to divorce from the European Union. Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson is the latest to quit. He says Theresa May is destroying Britain's Brexit dream.
Britain's top diplomat leaving his job and his plush home. As far as bad days at the office go, it doesn't get much worse than this for Prime Minister Theresa May, losing 2 of her top 4 cabinet ministers within 24 hours over her plan on how to cut ties with the European Union. The extraordinary day of drama comes just 3 days after Theresa May and her cabinet came up with a so-called united Brexit strategy. But they clearly weren't that united. Hardline Brexiteers like Boris believe it doesn't take enough power back from the European Union.
In his resignation letter, Boris Johnson said on Theresa May's Brexit strategy that the dream was dying, that she was leading the UK into a semi-Brexit with the status of a colony.
The unconventional politician was a driving force behind Brexit.
A once-in-a-lifetime chance.
But the compromises his leader is pushing make the deal too soft for him and the man tasked with divorcing the EU.
We are now proposing to use the same rule book, or the same laws really, as the European Union.
The United Kingdom is due to leave the European Union in March next year. Bemused but concerned, its leaders watch on.
And the mess caused by Brexit is the biggest problem in the history of EU-UK relations.
Tusk later asking whether Britain could even cancel Brexit altogether. Theresa May is vowing to fight on, not just to keep the top job, but also to follow through on what more than 17 million Britons voted for.
We will deliver in faith with the British people.
She'll need to draw on that faith. Her new Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, campaigned to remain in the EU. And today's extraordinary scenes beg the question, will there be more casualties, and will Theresa May be one of them?
A Sydney man has water skied into the record books by shattering the achievement of his own grandfather. Alex Luther knocked 300 hours off his grandfather's time to water ski from Africa to Italy. It took him 10 days, but to be fair, Alex only just learnt how to water ski.
For a man who only learned to ski 5 years ago, this was more than a challenge. A way of honouring his grandfather, Harry Luther, Australia's greatest ultra-marathon water skier, recreating his world record set in 1970. A 5,010-kilometre journey from the tip of northern Africa, across the Strait of Gibraltar, tracking along the coasts of Spain, France, Monaco, Italy and Croatia. A trip that took him 10 days, 5 hours and 36 minutes. After years of preparation, Alex finally set off on the 26th of June. He spent an average 7 hours a day on the ski, at times battling 5-metre swells. His journey attracted royal attention, greeted at the halfway point in Monaco by Prince Albert II.
How are you, Your Highness?
We've been waiting for you all day. I was sitting out here this morning at 8 o'clock.
Sorry we're late.
No.
It was another 5 more gruelling days before Alex crossed the finish line in Cervia, Italy. With better technology, Alex eliminated some of the stops along his grandfather's route and covered 3,699 kilometres in 10 days, 2 hours and 17 minutes, setting a record of his own.
I kind of don't want it to end, but at the same time I'm glad that it's all over and now I can just look forward to another adventure.
Here with National EMTV News, we go for a break. When we come back, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports. Don't go away.
True Kai Sports.
The country's top weightlifters have been challenged to compete for medals every time they attend international competitions. PNG's Golden Boy and Commonwealth Games gold medalist Stephen Curry says he is ready to face some of the world's best weightlifters at this year's World Championships in Turkmenistan.
For a gold medal.
Defending his Commonwealth Games gold medal, two-time undefeated gold medalist Stephen Curry, in a recent interview told EMTV that he is ready to face the world's best at this year's World Championships in Turkmenistan. With the challenge from the sports minister, Curry, who's determined to win the World Champs, says training for the World Championships started straight after the Commonwealth Games.
My next tournament is in November in Turkmenistan for the World Championship, so I'm prepared now. So I'm looking at a good tournament again for the war is on now, so never give up, keep on fighting and give more better result to my country again.
Stephen, who's in country for a month, is not only preparing himself for the World Championships. While he is in the country, he is helping young and upcoming weightlifters. Stephen will head back to New Caledonia for further training to prepare himself. He says nothing will stop him from winning gold for his family, his fans and his country once he sets foot on the international stage. He says the aim is to get there, win gold and come home. Godwin Eki, National, EMTV Sports.
To football now, President of NCT Football Association Voni Kapinato says female participation in the sport needs to be improved and promoted at the highest level. Voni says in order to harness future footballers, active competition should be carried out. And as President of NCDFA, Voni says seeing the numbers of young female players take part in club competitions, PNG, like any other country, can create world-class female footballers.
It is very sad to see that our girls or our women are neglected so far. I have never seen active competition so far in the city, and only a few parts outside of the city. I think Lay is quite very active with our women. In the city, I'm not sure, but I'm proud to say that I have a lot of women's team. Looking at all the other teams from other urban areas and outside of the city, we have a lot of potential in the country, especially in the city. I have seen unbelievable talent and quality.
And to basketball, after hosting the FIBA Melanesian Cup in Port Moresby last year, PNG will host this year's Under-15 FIBA Oceania Basketball Championship in December. The National Under-15 Basketball Championships last week, held at the Tarama Aquatic Centre, saw an array of skilled players as they showcased their talents to impress the selection panel for the national team.
A number of teams from around the country competed last week in the Under-15 National Basketball Championships in Port Moresby. The aim of the competition was to identify potential representatives for the train-on squad in preparations for the Under-15 Oceania Championships. A great mix of talented boys and girls competed to showcase their talents to impress the selection panel. Working hard to earn a spot in the final squad, this will be the first FIBA Oceania event for PNG to host in the Under-15 division, and Basketball PNG is adamant it will put forward its best players come game day. In the next few months, Basketball PNG will go through its preparations as well as training for the final teams. Godwin Eki, National, EMTV Sports.
And don't go anywhere, we'll have more of Trukai Sports after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To football in New Zealand, and for the first time in its history, the Wellington Phoenix will have a player with some English Premier League pedigree. 32-year-old former Newcastle United player Steven Tyler has signed a one-year deal with the club with the option of a second.
We should have seen coming. Kia ora, a Aotearoa.
4 years on from his pre-season tour with Newcastle United, Stephen Taylor is back in the capital, this time playing for the Wellington Phoenix.
I can't wait to get started. Literally meeting the players, training this morning with the players. It's excitement, it's like first day at school.
The defender, who played close to 200 English Premier League matches, becomes new coach Mark Rudan's first signing at the club.
This club's got a lot to prove. Everyone here's got a lot to prove, so he's bought into that.
And Taylor is no stranger to adversity. He was part of the Newcastle side that was relegated from the Premier League in 2009 and says that kind of experience can help coming into this new environment.
If you don't bounce back from that, you're going to struggle. And that's one of the biggest things I say now is we have to perform this year, and I'm looking forward to it.
While playing for English club Peterborough last year, he also showed that he's prepared to help with the dirty work when called upon.
10 minutes to go, the referee's telling you the game's going to get called off unless you can see the lines, so you grab a shovel and you do what you have to do to win games, and that's what it's all about.
I think the fans will really take to him. He's a Geordie, so he's got a personality, but I think what they'll really love about Stephen is that he is a player who will give 100% for the shirt.
Now it's Wellington's turn to say kia ora to its Premier League recruit. And to tennis, for the first time in the Open era, 2 Kiwi men are through to the quarterfinals at Wimbledon.
The Fed Express well and truly living up to his name, en route to a first set demolition.
Well, that's just naughty.
Roger Federer full steam ahead, outclassing Adrian Mannarino and only needing 16 minutes to close out the first set. If there was a positive for the Frenchman, it was that things couldn't get much worse.
Yes, hallelujah!
Despite his best efforts, Mannarino couldn't put any dents into the defending champion's game. Federer once again going through without dropping a set, a winning streak that's gone on at Wimbledon since 2016. Rafael Nadal wouldn't be as fast as Federer, but centre court crowds would again be put through another untroubled contest.
Nadal takes the break.
Nadal suffered shock defeats on the grass in his time, but showed no danger of that happening this time round against Jiri Vesely, the world number one, easing into his first Wimbledon quarterfinal in 7 years. The next man to reach the last 8 would be Novak Djokovic, with a comfortable victory over Russian Karen Khachanov. But the straight-set onslaughts weren't going to end there. In the Battle of the Mums, Serena Williams came out on top over Russian qualifier Evgenia Radina, hitting a total of 30 winners and 10 aces to make it through to a quarterfinal barren of any top 10 seeds. It's the first time since seeds were introduced in 1927 that none of the top 8 women have made it through to the quarters, making it almost impossible to deny Williams' name from being etched onto the trophy for an 8th time.
And that's it for Trukai Sports. We go for another break. When we come back, the weather details for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Port Moresby, cloudy at times, windy and cloudy at times for Darum. Rain and drizzle expected in Kerma and Popondetta. Windy and rain drizzle for Alotau. To the Momase region, rain and drizzle expected in Leh, Wau and Madang. Morning rain for Wewak, mostly fine in Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, squally rain showers expected in Loranga. A shower or two for Kavieng, Kokopo and Rabaul. Rain and showers for Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundia, Wat Mendi and Wabeg, all these major centres can expect rain drizzle tonight with early morning fog developing. To a look at the forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours, but first there is a strong wind warning current for all coastal waters of southern PNG Indonesian border. through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island to Kerama, Yule Island, Hood Point to All Milne Bay Islands to Finchafen, through Vitias and Dampier Strait to CSE Island to Long Island, and West New Britain to Manus and its western group of islands, including the Coral, Solomon and Bismarck Sea. There is also a gale wind warning current for all coastal waters through Vitias and Dampier Strait to CSE Island to Long Island and western part of West New Britain into the Bismarck Sea. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island to Kerawa, Yule Island to Hood Point to Samarai Island, and with waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands and waters of Samarai Island to Cape Bogle to Finchafen, seas 2 to 3 meters. Waters of Finchafen through Vitias and Dampier Strait to CSE Island to Long Island, seas 3 to 3.5 meters. Waters of Long Island to Madang, Bogia, Wewak, Aitape, Vanimo and the northern PNG Indonesian border, seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands and waters of West New Britain, seas 2.5 to 3 meters. And waters of East New Britain to New Ireland and Bougainville, seas 1.5 to 2 meters. And a look at the ocean forecast for PNG areas. Coral Sea sees rough with southeasterly winds at 25 to 34 knots. Solomon Sea sees rough with southeasterly winds at 25 to 34 knots. Bismarck Sea sees very rough with southeasterly winds at 34 to 48 knots. And the Pacific Ocean sees slight with northeast to southeasterly winds at 10 to 15 knots.
The details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And before we go, site works has already commenced at the Independence Boulevard Precinct and Stage 2 of the Ella Beach Precinct. Both projects are expected to be grand national infrastructures once they are complete, but not without necessary compromises.
Construction of the Independence Boulevard Precinct and Stage 2 of the Ella Beach Precinct in Port Moresby were officially launched today by the NCD Governor Pauwes Pakop and Justin Tachenko in his capacity as the Lands Minister. Site work has already begun.
Chinese government, this gift, the boulevard, is consistent with our status as the national capital.
The Independence Boulevard Precinct will consist of a brand new 6-lane road, 2 footpaths 5 meters wide, street and path lights on both sides, 3 traffic lights, 5 distinct natural parks, and a grand parade access into the Parliament. It will be used like any other road on normal days except for public holidays, when the entire boulevard will be closed off for public celebrations. But it comes with a price. 260 meters of land in the vicinity of the current site will be reclaimed as state land for the construction of the boulevard. Lands Minister Justin Tachenko confirmed this today, saying that he is expecting pushback from the current landowners, but it was a necessary move.
I'm sure some people hearing this will be quite upset and some might run to court, but bad luck. Bad luck. We are doing this for public good. We are doing this for the public recreation because our public space in the city is getting depleted left, right and centre.
The same applies to Stage 2 of the Ella Beach Precinct construction now underway. NCD will be securing titles or declarations of reserves in the next few weeks. NCD will now own portions of 3611, 2848, 4061 and 4069, 97.5 hectares of the waterfront. NCD's plan is to link Cora Way to Sir William Skates Highway at Baruni Pass and use the materials to reclaim Stage 2 of the Ella Beach.
So we will do evacuation or, excavation from that road and use it to landfill and develop Stage 2.
The entire waterfront will be for public recreation facilities, including the beach. Half of the remaining land will be sold to a developer in exchange for funding for the development of Stage 2 of the Ella Beach precinct. NCD also plans on building a jetty in one of the groins for regular tourist ferries either to Manubara Island or Fisherman's Island. Discussions with landowners are on the pipeline.
We've started looking at how we can work with the landowners at the Fisherman Island to develop that beautiful island into a good, holiday resort or weekend resort or tourist resort for, both local and international tourism.
Independence Boulevard is expected to be completed by the end of September at the cost of 40 million kina, given in grant from the Chinese government. Ella Beach precinct is expected to cost about 50 million and completed sooner in mid-September. Melissa Gaviro, National EMTV News.
And that story ends the news bulletin this evening. On behalf of the EMTV News crew, pleasant viewing. Good night.